everyone's trying to not oppress people. Everyone's trying to behave in a way that's not oppressive to others, because there's this sense that that's what all the bad people have done. They exploit, they oppress, they use power, they gain power over others, the rich, the church, the state, the aristocracy, the capitalists. I want to defend those people and power and consumer culture, because consumer culture is at the heart of this. And I'm making the argument that consumer culture is the place of artistic creation in our modern multicultural capitalist world. And that's good. It's not a bad thing. It's not a necessary evil. It's something that's neither good nor bad. It can be used for evil. People do use it for evil. They manipulate, they exploit. Fashionistas, fashionistas. But you have the well-dressed philosopher. You have the dandy artist in Wilde, and to some extent in Tolkien and others that I'm going to adduce. So let's start with Wilde's play An Ideal Husband, in which we have there's several main characters, but two main male characters: Sir Robert Chiltern, who's in Parliament in England, in the House of Commons. He's a junior staff of one of these major members of Parliament, in the Foreign Office, dealing with stuff with international affairs. And you've got Lord Goring, who's in the House of Lords, obviously, and they have power. And Mrs. Cheveley comes into the life of Sir Robert and threatens him and blackmails him into supporting something that she wants to support, which is an Argentine canal. It doesn't matter, but they want to build this canal in Argentina, kind of like the Panama Canal. And it doesn't make any sense to build it there. And Sir Robert knows that, but she wants him to support it. And she wants Parliament to support it so that she can make all this money. And he says, I'm not going to do that. But then she says, I'm going to blackmail you because I have this letter that proves that you fraudulently sold state secrets 20 years ago, or whatever this was, maybe 15 years ago, when he was starting out his career. And that money that he got from that fraudulent selling, bribery of state secrets, that this Baron Arnheim got, was used by Baron Arnheim to make a lot of money, because it was for another canal scheme, which was an actual historical canal, which was the Suez Canal. And so Baron Arnheim was able to invest in that canal scheme early and make tons of money, because he had bought this state secret from Sir Robert Chiltern. So what does Sir Robert do? So he's like, okay, I guess I'm going to have to back this new scheme that Mrs. Cheveley is forcing him into. But then his wife says, no, you can't do that. You know that this is a false thing. And so he's kind of on the fence. What do I do? Do I stay true to my life? Can I tell my wife the truth that I actually committed this crime early on? She thinks I'm this ideal husband. The whole play is called Ideal Husband. And his wife's kind of a Puritan. She's kind of super strict on laws, on rules. And she has this idealized vision of him. And so, long story short, I'm going to make this short. He doesn't. And so Lord Goring, who's the dandy, who's the well-dressed philosopher of the play, of the story, a man who dresses 3 times a day, goes to the opera and the ballet, and lives this very fashionable life, is the hero of the play. He does the heroic deed of basically forcing Mrs. Cheveley to give him the letter so that he can destroy it and protect Sir Robert. And because there's a long story how he does that, but he basically is able to do that. saves Sir Robert, saves the marriage of Sir Robert and his wife, because now his wife knows that her husband has committed this crime, and she's kind of telling him, now you should leave politics because, you know, you started politics by this crime, a sin, immoral act, a lie, and he's about to leave politics, even though now he's been saved by Lord Goring. But Lord Goring says to his wife, no, don't force your husband to like renounce his ambitions for power, for serving his country in politics. You know that would be horrible. Like support him. So she does, and then Sir Robert's like, okay, I'm going to stay in politics. I'm going to keep my power. So this is a kind of a metaphor, and a kind of lesson in consumer art and consumer culture art, that just because you have power, just because you have the power to manipulate and potentially to lie, that doesn't mean you shouldn't use your power. You shouldn't have power. You shouldn't promote that hierarchical structure in society that power is affording you. Good. So let's talk about where we're coming from, where we're going, consumer culture and art, a commodified aesthetic, a performance, a style, standing in symbolic relation to the culture, tapping into the unconscious. So this is a type of art, a type of culture that isn't just dealing with objective facts, but is dealing with what's under consciousness, what's not accessible to reason. These deeper drives, these deeper senses of identity, tribal, consumeristic, and so forth. And whether those are tribal myths, like the myths of the ancient Greeks, Homer, the Iliad, the Odyssey, the Romans, the ancient Indians, the Bhagavad Gita, and the ancient Jews and the ancient Christians, the ancient Muslims as well. These myths haven't gone away, and this mythic thinking and this symbolic thinking hasn't gone away. It never went away. And people like Freud and Nietzsche saw that. Freud and Nietzsche, who were able to kind of deal with modernity, but also critique it and see like, okay, this Enlightenment thought that it was just going to be totally rational, totally logical. But wait a minute, there's all this unconscious still going on. There's still this, the Dionysian aspect of human experience going on, which touches on religious experience. And Freud's nephew, Edward Bernays, who is so funny that this is actually Freud's nephew, is the founder of modern advertising culture in New York City. He was Freud's nephew, actually twice over, both through his wife's family and through Freud's own family. And here's Edward Bernays, who gets all these ideas from his uncle and takes it into the world of Madison Avenue in New York City, and the advertising culture and the cigarettes for women, torches of freedom. He was able to like brand things so that they could become popular. He worked for General Electric. He worked for these big companies. Lived a pretty long life into I think the 60s, maybe even the 70s. But yeah, totally shaped our advertising culture, our consumer culture. And so that's where art is happening. And it's going to be inflected by consumerism and performance and surface and fashion and these things which seem negative and seem destructive of a more valuable culture. And you know, what do people love, whether it's Beyonce or Nike or McDonald's? I don't know if you like McDonald's. The Cowboys, that is to say, the Dallas Cowboys, Lionel Messi, like these people and items and brands that drive people's senses of themselves. That's where consumer culture art is taking place. And let me read a little bit from our friend Karl Marx, who was seeing this happen early on. He was living in England. He's from Germany, but writing about England, where marketing, consumer culture was really starting out big time in the 1850s, 1860s. And in his Communist Manifesto, he writes this, and this is kind of describing like the Marxist idea that like this is all bad, like this consumer culture. He says, all fixed, fast, frozen relations with their train of ancient and venerable prejudices and opinions are swept away. All new formed ones become antiquated before they can ossify. All that is solid melts into air. All that is holy is profaned. That's a famous quote. All that is solid melts into air. So all these solid identities of like your nation and your religion, it's gonna like melt into air, and because of this big global capitalism, which is gonna like proliferate all over the world, which really it has. So Marx was actually very insightful there. Then he says, the need of a constantly expanding market for its products chases the bourgeoisie over the entire surface of the globe. It must nestle everywhere, settle everywhere, establish connections everywhere. I think Marx is actually right on here. He's seeing what happened, what was beginning to happen, and which really has happened in global capitalism. And he says, the bourgeoisie has, through its exploitation of the world market, given a cosmopolitan character to production and consumption in every country. In place of old wants satisfied by the production of the country, we find new wants, requiring for their satisfaction the products of distant lands and climes. And so you have this global market, and the bourgeoisie is consuming, buying on Amazon, buying at Walmart, stuff that's made all over the world. And these thick bonds of tribe and nation and religion are kind of getting dissolved. And so like, why should I have allegiance to my country or to my church? I'm buying stuff from another country and from another culture, and like I'm buying Chinese food, and I'm buying my iPhone, which was partly made in China and Bangladesh and Chile and assembled in California and so forth. That's what it says on my phone, assembled in California. Marx and many modern non-Marxists, even conservatives like Christians will have a similar idea, like, oh, bad capitalism, bad communism, bad consumerism, because it's just kind of materialistic, it's too exploitative of our desires. But I'm saying, no, it's actually potentially, and it is good, in when it's done well, consumer culture is this good. And when, obviously everything depends on how morally you act. So when consumer culture is done badly and immorally, it is exploitative, and it uses improper things, and it makes people slaves of fashion. But when it's not, it's educating people in fashion and helping them become their own creators, their own performers, their own creators of themselves. Now, self-creation can be kind of a negative thing, where you don't really have a true self. But self-creation can be a good thing in a weaker sense. So, obviously, none of us creates themselves, but to some extent, we create all big parts of ourselves through our consumer habits and through our fandoms and our sense of who we are through fandom and Comic-Con and the movies, the music we listen to, and so forth. The sports that we watch and participate in the rituals of. And so in this modern capitalist multicultural culture, links to meaning happen through consumer culture and through Amazon and through what I buy at the store and through what I consume through my phone. And that's mixed up with my religious culture and my national culture and my tribal culture and my psychological culture. So like those things they're not gone away. Like Marx was kind of saying, like all those things are going to go away, and it's just going to be pure capitalism, pure consumerism. Those things are still there, and that's the that's what is sort of the ballast that keeps modern capitalism and multiculturalism from just imploding on itself. Which I guess that's what Marx was thinking was going to happen. And it's a mistake to lump all consumerism into this exploitative basket and say like it's all the same. No, there's good and there's bad. And so, can I do this on? I have a little chart, and this, I'm using Zoom. And the Zoom whiteboard has a lot to be desired, but let's give it a try. Hold on a second. Make it a little bigger. Whiteboard, share. And so, guess I'm not sure how to do a chart. So I'm just going to try it. Let's do this. So if we have tribe and religion as one of my 3 chart topics, and then I go down below that and I say, this is like for ancient Athens and ancient Sparta, and never quite does what I wanted to do. And this is also for ancient Israel and Persia, and this is a place where there were shamans and priests. So that's my left column. Let's do a middle column here, where we have a state or empire. And what do I mean by that? So I mean like ancient Rome. Backed by a religion, so it's not just a state. Or let's go to 1700s and Prussia, which is Germany, or before Germany was Germany, or the UK. Or let's go to the 20th century and you have the communists in the Soviet Union, and communists in Maoist China. And so in those cultures, you have a state and a religion kind of linked, and I'm using atheism as a kind of a religion, or Marxism as a kind of religion, or it's a type of religiousy thought. Let me use the word religiousy. And then let's do a right column, if I can, where we're going to talk about the modern cultures, which are fully multicultural. And by that I mean like all Western countries and many other non-Western countries. Maybe modern China, I don't know. Is modern China, because there you do still have, it's not Maoist China, but it's similar. Why can I not select the words that I just, let's mark select. Oh, there it goes. Yeah, okay, so I can select those. So yes, this is my three-part chart. And what do I mean by this is that in more ancient times especially, but also into the Middle Ages, you had a tribal religion, they tended to be smaller. Like Athens was a city-state, Sparta was a city-state, Israel was a small country, Persia was maybe a bigger country. But you had a tribe and a religion and a language all linked, and they all worked seamlessly. And if you were Jewish and Israelite, you all read the same Bible, and you had all the same rituals, and you had the same language. And that was giving everybody their sense of identity. And there was the others, because they were getting conquered by other people, but they stuck to their traditions, even to the modern day, like for the last 4,000 years, amazingly. the Jews have done that. Then you have this is sort of quasi-multicultural, because you take ancient Rome, and they conquered so many different countries and peoples, but they did have this common multicultural Roman culture. But they let the Greeks worship their gods and the Jews to some extent, although the Jews were a problem for the Romans, uniquely, interestingly. But they let the Persians and they let the Egyptians and the French, the Gauls, have their own gods and their own religious practices, as long as they went along with this big Roman culture. Or in 1700s Prussia, or in 1700s in the UK, the state was very powerful. And in fact, those were the beginnings of empires as well, and for both Prussia, which becomes Germany, the UK, which would eventually become the biggest empire in the world in the 1800s. By the time you reach the year 1900, England, the UK has the biggest empire in the world. So this is a kind of multicultural empire. And then I mentioned communist Soviet Union, which also was multicultural, but it had its official religion, Marxism, Marxism-Leninism, which it enforced, and it didn't allow other ideas in there. It jailed Christians and other religious thinkers and Muslims. Maoist China, similar. But then you get to the modern world, and what do you have? A fully multicultural culture where there is, as I said, swaths of different religious groups, Christians, Jews, Muslims, various types of Christians, Buddhists, operating in the United States, in the UK, in France, even in much of Latin America, Mexico, especially the bigger Latin American countries, in parts of Asia. And so, is this a bad place? Should we try to go back to the tribal religious thing, or this more middle thing like the ancient Romans or the 1700s UK? And I'm saying no. We've got our modern multicultural, capitalist, consumerist world, and let's build there. And that's good. And that, I have my own religious viewpoint. I'm not going to bring that in here because I don't think that's important. What's important is, whatever your religious viewpoint or non-religious viewpoint, we still have this multiculture, this place of consumer culture where we can make great art and great culture. But it's going to be inflected in and involved in consumer culture. You can't get out of that. I mean, you can and have like your nice little coterie thing, but it's not going to address the broader culture. If you want to address the broader culture, you're going to be dealing with consumer culture. Wilde saw that. Tolkien saw that. Okay, I'm going to try and introduce this song. It's a hard song. I'm going to mess this up. Let's see if I can pull this off. It's from the Foo Fighters. It's The Best of You. And if you know the Foo Fighters, Dave Grohl has a really high voice. I changed it. You can change the notes a little bit here, but still pretty high. So here goes nothing. And he starts with this kind of scream. I got another confession to make. I'm your fool. Everyone's got the chains to break, holding you. Were you born to resist or be abused? Is someone getting the best of you? Is someone getting the best of you? Are you gone on to someone new? I needed somewhere to hang my head without your noose. You gave me something that I didn't have too weak to give in, too strong to lose. My heart is under arrest again, but I'll break loose. My head is giving me life or death, but I can't choose. I swear I'll never give in. No, I refuse. It's someone getting the best, the best, the best, the best of you. It's someone getting the best, the best, the best, the best of you. It's someone taking your faith, it's real. The pain you feel, the trust you must confess. It's someone getting the best, the best, the best of you. But let's take a look at the lyrics, and I'll give you my take on it. Because, I mean, this is kind of a weird love song where the guy's thinking, oh, my girlfriend's cheating on me or something. Am I getting the best of you? Okay, that's part of it. But the part that I want to focus on is more like, I've got another confession to make. I'm your fool. And when we're connected to an identity, whether that's being in love or being a patriot or being a fan or being in a religion, you're becoming a fool for that thing and that person, and so he's confessing this. Although he gets the second confession later on in the song. Where is this? I've got another confession, my friend. I'm no fool. I'm getting tired of starting again. And so he has lost his faith in his love. And so he's wondering, and he sort of knows he's not getting the best of this person. And are you gone onto someone new? With your noose, I was too weak to give in. My heart is under arrest again, but I'll break loose. So he's got to break free from this connection to this person. And I'm making this analogy between the love of this person, the love that he has for this person, and as I'm saying, the kind of love, these deeper subconscious, unconscious connections we have that define us, to my country, to my tribe, to my people. And has someone taken your faith? So then it gets into this faith question. Has someone taken your faith? Is it real? The pain you feel, the trust you must confess. And so this is where he's working, and this is where I'm working. Like, this is where consumer culture works at this quasi-religious level. It allows us to make sense of our pain, because we're all going through various moments of pain, and sometimes for long periods, depressions or anxieties, and that's why you need, well, some people need religion, some people need other affiliations that give them meaning, and that, you know, the trust that you must confess, that's where we're working. And someone taking your faith, the pain you feel, the life, the love, you die to heal. And so you die to yourself. You take part of yourself and you kill it off in order to move ahead. That's what's going on here. The hope that starts the broken hearts you trust, you must confess. And so the nice thing about this song is how he's under the rubric of this love and this troubled love that he's having. He's getting into these issues that I'm getting into. So just wanted to use that as a way of getting into this further consumer culture theory. And yeah, I was looking online, and there is a body of work called Consumer Culture Theory, CCT, it's called, which I had never heard of before. And the reason I had never heard of it is that it's done not in the humanities departments like English or history or philosophy. It's done in the business school, in the marketing department. And so humanities professors tend to totally discount and sometimes even hate the business school, the College of Business, because there's this kind of general bias against capitalism and consumerism, which I'm talking about here. And so, but the problem is that now these literature departments and history departments have dropped the ball, and this whole area of study has been totally neglected. You know, Oscar Wilde wrote his stuff over 100 years ago, and people haven't developed this literary theory or this cultural theory, except people who are teaching marketing. And so, as I was saying at the beginning, modern people are so afraid of oppressing others, and that's good. I mean, you don't want to oppress others, but then it leads to this knee-jerk reaction or this throwing out of the baby with the bathwater, where you've lost this consumer culture art, this consumer art world that is rich and has so much possibility, and it's happening even if we don't study it. And there's what I might call a kind of productive perspectivalism and a non-productive perspectivalism. And perspectivalism, where like everything's based on your perspective or where you're standing from, or where your religious viewpoint or your ideology viewpoint, that is your perspective, and that's someone else's perspective. Like, here's me, a Christian, there's that guy, a Muslim, there's that person, an agnostic. Those are the perspectives, and we're all looking at the same thing, but we have our belief systems and our perspectives on them. Yeah, that's true. In our language, and all of our knowledge is mediated through language and through culture, and that's a good way of understanding perspectivalism. It's kind of a weaker reading of perspectivalism, whereas a stronger reading of perspectivalism, someone like Nietzsche, for example, would say that there is no true you, there's no true me. I'm just a bunch of masks that I'm a bunch of performances that I do. There's no core. And it's like turtles all the way down. There's no me there. There's no you there. And I would say, no, that's just silly. I mean, of course there's a person, there. But And because we have this perspectivalism, this weaker form of perspectivalism as I'm describing it, non-Nietzschean form, we're not alone. We're also in a community, in a tradition, in a democracy, let's say, like it's not just me spouting my viewpoints, but I'm in dialogue with others. I'm getting critiqued. If I want to publish, well, I'm publishing on YouTube here, but if you want to publish, you're going to get peer reviewed, you're going to get other viewpoints, and you're going to have to like justify what you have to say in front of others. And same thing, like our democracy works in a kind of analogous way, that like we don't want a dictator. We want people who are going to disagree, and that's going to get us closer to a better culture, a better, truer culture if we have democracy. And there's a kind of democracy of culture, which happens, and that's going to happen within consumer culture as well, consumer art, and so in consumer culture art, you're always building on what was prior, and you're moving towards what's new. And Wilde would sort of talk about this. He would say, like, artists, that's what the future is. Like, we're building the future. Artists are. That's what artists' role is. And I think that's true. Now, that doesn't mean like it's completely made up, because you're always building on the past, and you take that old information and you combine it with new information, and there's a kind of chaos towards order. There's a kind of multi towards a synthesis, or there's a kind of, Hegel would have said, like, there's a thesis and antithesis, and then you move towards a synthesis, like something that's higher, something that's more developed further on. And that tension towards the new, that's where meaning happens. That's where art happens. That's where consumer art is going to get built. And that's why it's inflected with fashion, because there's always like, the fashion's always like a little bit new, and it has to constantly change. It can't just stay the same. Sorry, like that. That's just the way fashion works. Oscar Wilde had this joke that, oh gosh, can I remember it now? Like, fashion is so ugly they had to change it every 6 months. Now, it's a joke, but there's some truth about that. Like, it has to constantly change. And getting back to the beginning of our story here with Oscar Wilde's play An Ideal Husband, you have a kind of traditional story of the man of duty heroically facing forces of evil and forging a good, fighting for the good. But then you have this new twist on it, where you, for one thing, you have the well-dressed philosopher, you have the fashion dandy, who's kind of the hero of the story. That's kind of a new thing. And he's playing with masks and surfaces, and kind of in a quasi-Nietzschean way. And then you have Sir Robert, who's also another hero, who, even though he has committed this crime and is kind of at first thinking of leaving the world of power, the world of hierarchy, the world of consumer culture, ultimately, he stays there. And at the moment where he's thinking, like, maybe I shouldn't keep power, maybe I should just, that's a world, there's just too much dirt there, there's too much capacity to oppress people, let me just stay away from that. No, I'm going to go for power, he says. I'm going to go for politics. I'm going to have a career of power and stay there, whether that's in the world of politics or in the world of consumer fashion or consumer stories or consumer film, Hollywood, Bollywood, all these worlds of film or television that are powerful multi-million-dollar industries. And whether that's Tolkien today, where Tolkien's stories is being played out in a consumerized version by Amazon, and they spent $1 billion on this television series. Like, they're spending $1 billion. Like, this is a lot of money, and it's going to make a lot of money, obviously, for Amazon, and that's why Jeff Bezos is doing this. But it's also good culture. It's also a place where good culture can be done. knock on wood, I'm a fan of the Rings of Power, the new Lord of the Rings of Power series. It could go south, but no, it hasn't gone south. And I think this is a good example of how consumer culture is a place where a lot of good culture, positive culture building culture, non-destructive culture is going to happen.